Hello, everyone. Welcome to VR Download, our weekly show where we focus on industry trends and general hardware situations going on in VR and AR. I'm Ian Hamilton here, your host today. I was in here yesterday with Kyle doing like an impromptu Q&A session, but this is our regular show where we get into the latest VR news. I'm joined here by...
I'm David Heaney. I'm from Northern Ireland, and recently I've been trying out the Nreal Light AR glasses, which we will talk about in the second half of this show.
Yeah, we don't have it's been like a busy couple weeks for the VR market. We've got a lot of software releases coming out, and we've got sort of the groundwork being laid for next year. Welcome everyone in our comments, everyone watching out there. Please like, subscribe, comment. We can read your comments here in VR. We get this question every week, so just for everyone that's wondering, we David Heaney over here custom built this studio in Unity using Oculus avatars as our avatar APIs, and then we are running on standalone Quest headsets here. So we're using the hand tracking technology on the Quests for expressivity with our hands, and we're able to run our broadcast here despite being on completely different parts of the country. And if you have questions about VR or about some of our news subjects that we're going to cover today, let us know in the comments and we can check them out there. Heaney, I was watching, before we get into this first news subject, I wanted to just share this. I was watching The Matrix last night for the first time in a very long time. And I missed this. This is where Neo works in The Matrix. He works at Metacortex in The Matrix. This is one shot in the whole film. They show this side of the building before actually showing that that's where he works. And I don't know. Did you know that, Heaney? I didn't know that. That was news to me. No, you're muted, I think. Maybe you're looking for assets. Hello, everyone. Bicycle, Robert, everyone in the comments, Sampler.
I think I should be able to hear me now. I was
Yes,
stuck in the system keyboard. The system keyboard froze.
The system,
all I could see was
the
keys.
system kept you from commenting. You were on a different layer of the Matrix, and that's what happened. Okay.
Yeah, it was weird. Hopefully, we can get a physical keyboard in here soon.
Yeah, there's a question here. Are you two working from home, or does your setup require office space? I am sitting at my home desk. I have never worked from an office writing about virtual reality. I guess when I first wrote about the first stories when I was at the Orange County Register and writing about things that weren't VR related as well. But as long as I've been working about VR full time, it's always been from home. Is that the same for you, Heaney?
Yeah, UploadVR is a fully remote company. None of us have an office. We all work from home. Although I guess you can kind of count Jamie and Zena's place as the UK office because they live together.
All right, Heaney, let's get into this first news. All right, Apple's VR, AR headset, what do we call it, and what is it going to do? What do we know at this point?
What do we call it? That's an interesting way to start this off. I mean, I'm of the opinion that once VR headsets start to get mixed reality capabilities that are really compelling, they will just be called headsets. I don't think the acronym will stay on. I think in the same way, some people say you've already got headphones that are called headsets today, but I can't see that lasting long if virtual reality headsets with mixed reality capabilities become popular.
Well, do you think they'll be glasses or goggles? I think that's one of the terms that's at the core of this. Headsets is even a little bit, do you think Apple's going to get to glasses with this device?
Well, no, what we understand from the reports is that Apple is working on two separate head-mounted devices, and the one that is expected to come out next year is very much so a headset. It's a ski goggles kind of design with a strap, similar to Quest 2's look, but a lot slimmer. And then separately, they have an AR glasses product, which every time we hear about it, they add an extra year in the report to when it's expected. And I think the latest reports expect it around 2025. But I think as we're going forward, that's what we will have, these two distinct product categories of headsets that you use in your home and glasses that you use outside of your home. And obviously there will be some overlap, but I think those are the two distinct categories we're likely to see. I am stuck in the system keyboard again, so I'm just going to restart very quickly here.
Yeah, Heaney and I have talked about this for quite a long time. It's kind of a running joke in the VR AR space that Apple is going to do AR glasses at some point. The the obviously the issue is, when are they going to do it? Apple's very good at picking exactly the right time to enter a market, when there's sort of a lot they can bring to bear when it comes to the user experience. So we're kind of curious, like, are we at that moment where the user experience in AR can really be leaped forward in a significant way? Or are we going to see that first with VR? And, like, could we see them really do some really neat things with robust mixed reality right out the gate?
Well, yeah, that's the reports indicate that this headset, and here is the only visual we have from any kind of reliable source. The information has claimed to actually have seen images of a late stage prototype, and they aren't allowed to, for legal reasons, I believe, just take that image. So what they decided to do was have their artist sketch what they saw, and this is what it looks like. You can see that there's this kind of mesh fabric facial interface kind of thing, a curved visor at the front, a power button there, and a strap that presumably will be sold in different configurations and colors. And, it's very similar design to the Apple Watch. But our understanding is that this product will be mainly focused on mixed reality. So there's no indication from any of the reports that this is going to have touch-like gaming controllers. The only thing we've heard about input is that it could be some kind of novel device that goes around your fingers as a ring. Some have codenamed it or nicknamed it a thimble. So the idea is that this will probably be focused on in-home mixed reality. So games that take place within your physical living room, or having overlays on your wall, a virtual television. And what we've heard recently in the report, and the reason that this is news this week, is that supply chain analyst Ming-Chi Kuo, who is known for having supply chain sources and predicting Apple products years in advance, he has a 76% accuracy rating. He is claiming that this thing will have M1 chip level performance and dual 4K displays. And the M1 is the chip used in the MacBook Air and in the latest iPad Pros. It's Apple's first kind of PC chip that they've made themselves. And that's a pretty extraordinary claim, because to put a chip like that in a product this size while still having a long battery life seems to me to be effectively impossible. So I'm wondering if something's got lost in translation there, or if this is going to be a new chip from the future that will be able to provide that level of performance in a headset like this.
Mm.
But if that claim is true, this thing is going to be significantly more powerful than Quest 2.
Yeah, and Quest 2 being unlikely to be the device that this product is going to compete against. That's kind of the elephant in the room here. We'd have no expectations that whatever comes of this is going to go up head to head against the Quest 2, right? It would be Project Cambria at Meta that this competes against, right?
Micro displays are not cheap. So from the start, that means that this product, if Quo's claims are correct, isn't going to be cheap. Quo himself in the past has claimed that this thing will be priced at least $1,000. We heard another report, $3,000. If you look at the cheapest M1 MacBooks, if I'm not mistaken, are something like $1,800, maybe somewhere between $1,500 and $2,000. So Apple is not known. And as you say, it looks like this thing's going to be more of a competitor to the Project Cambria high-end headset that Meta teased at Connect recently than Quest 2. And you've got to wonder how that strategy is going to work, in terms of how are they going to build a big enough consumer base to make it attractive for developers to build on this platform, if it's only going to be available to a very small amount of people. And one of the reports earlier this year, I remember, said that claimed that Apple's internal expectation is to only sell a few 100,000 of these things. So I wonder if this will be more
Mm.
of a developer kit than really a consumer product.
So the thing I just want to throw out there, I saw it in our comments already. It's like year in, year out, week in, week out. People are getting tired of sort of these endless teases. It's been nonstop rumors, leaks, hints, and to your point, right at the outset of this, the AR glasses, the super slim thing that will actually wear out in the real world on a regular basis keeps getting pushed out into the future. And from everything we see from our vantage point, it may be that way for a couple of years now, since these types of devices may sort of move the bar forward for those AR glasses to hit, like in order to match this experience. But the thing I want to mention here is that Apple is hiring people. They are, and I think of that, it sounds like such a stupid thing to say, like it just, but they are staffing up, and some of the most talented, dedicated people to virtual reality and augmented reality, and these technologies fundamentally changing the 21st century. Uh, they are going and getting hired at Apple, and they're working on something. And I want to come back to that. Like, even you go back years, I know they've always been working on something, but like it feels like I've seen more people hired by Apple in the last couple of years than the years prior, and it seems like they're actually ramping up to finally deliver on something. And I only mention the hiring thing because like there's so many people out there that are negative on Meta and critical of the fact that Meta is in the lead here. And I just want to say that like there's plenty of people out there who are not taking positions at Meta and going to Microsoft or Apple and trying to staff those competitors up and try to build a competing platform.
Yeah, we've seen quite a few of the big names go in recent years, as you've said. Apple has been hiring even some of the people from Valve, as we've heard rumors that Valve is kind of less focused on VR than it was before, and potentially, again, these are just rumors, but potentially Valve was disappointed by the Half-Life Alyx not really spurring a resurgence in the PC market. Just to come back on some of these comments on the M1 chip, that is a good correction from the commenters that the base MacBook Air with the M1 chip is $1,000. So that's the kind of price floor we can expect. And just to respond to this comment here, someone saying the M1 chip has excellent battery life, and you're correct, but that's when it's paired with a battery that is 3 times larger at minimum than what we see in the Quest 2. The question isn't does the M1 the question isn't is M1 very power efficient? It's is it the right kind of chip to put in a headset that is supposed to be a few hundred grams? You have to remember Apple has a series of chips that it uses in small portable devices. It's the A series that's in the iPhone, and they're still incredibly powerful chips, and they're more powerful than Qualcomm puts out, but they aren't PC level performance. And the question here is Crow claiming that the M1 chip itself will be in this headset, or is he claiming that a future A series chip or a chip that's similar to the A series chips will be in a headset and somehow match M1's performance? So there's a lot of questions there.
And Guy Godin, the developer of Virtual Desktop, apparently a regular viewer of ours. Thank you so much for tuning in to us, Guy, and thank you everyone who shares the word out about this podcast. But Guy, in the comments, raising the prospect of Apple maybe not supporting OpenXR, and how significant would that be if Apple lands one way or the other on supporting that standard that basically the rest of the industry does?
Yeah, it's interesting you say basically the rest of the industry. It really is all of the rest of the industry. I think I can bring up the image here, but I know in a few shows before we've brought up all of the logos of the companies that are OpenXR, and it really is everyone except for Apple. So I guess there's two potential possibilities here. Either Apple wants to keep its normal subtlety and kind of secrecy about its product plans maintained and not want to even reveal that it's interested in a product yet until it's ready to show something. So it doesn't even want to participate in OpenXR, at least publicly. Though that seems fairly unlikely given that if you want to develop content for this thing that's ready by launch, you're going to want to be engaging in that OpenXR standard. You're going to want to be, helping drive the standard and decide what's going to be in it. But it does seem, if Apple's past behavior is any indication of what it plans to do in mixed reality, it looks like we really may have the same old situation of an open standard for everything else and a proprietary standard for Apple. And there's advantages and disadvantages there because yes, it means that developers have to rebuild and tweak their apps and for Apple specifically, but it also means that Apple has the potential to push its own vision of what VR and AR software development could look like that may be better in some ways than what the current de facto standards are. And we really need to kind of, if you look at ARKit and the developer tools that Apple has built there, they're very modern, they're very clean, they're very useful for even the most inexperienced developers to build something without having to reinvent the wheel. And if Apple can deliver a much better developer experience, even with its own proprietary system, I don't think developers will overall mind.
Hmm. I think the open standard is an interesting one to me because that's one layer of potential conflict between the various platforms and sort of added cost potentially for developers to have to develop for two competing systems rather than one system and uh, being able to kind of get all your software on all these devices. But it's not just potentially OpenXR. It's input too, where the Apple platform might diverge substantially from the existing content that we have. And I think uh, I think of all the people out there that have bought into VR headsets these last 5 years, and all the wonderful things we've done with tracked hand controllers. All the amazing top selling VR games are all tracked hand controller games. And we are in this transitional period where a lot of hand tracking games are coming out on Quest, even. And I would not be surprised to see hand tracking to be a kind of big part of what Apple does. Um, but that's another kind of friction point where there may be just a completely different audience that these headsets appeal to than the existing one. And honestly, a different set of developers than the existing set of developers who all fell in love with tracked hand controllers as the way they want to interact with virtual content.
Yeah, I guess if as Meta's kind of aiming towards controller free hand tracking itself, we'll probably see overlap in the kind of content that's built for potential future Meta headsets that might eventually not have controllers. And what Apple's doing here, I'm going to bring up an image here of what we think is the thimble. This has shown up in a few Apple patent filings and a few of the kind of more reliable reports about what we might see in this headset. So it looks like Apple is going to go for an input paradigm that is just completely different to what we have in VR today. And that's not unexpected from Apple. Apple generally doesn't like to follow the same kind of human interface procedures that companies before did. If you look at the iPhone, it was a radically different interface than the button phones that were there before. People were heavily skeptical about the idea of a purely multi-touch device at the time. No one seems to remember that, but half of the internet's response to the first iPhone was, it doesn't have a keyboard, it's useless. Why the hell
Well,
would I ever buy one of those?
Haney, this interface, the thing I think that's so interesting about it is workrooms, Horizon workrooms from Meta. If you go in there and use the controller as a writing device down on the top, it feels like one of the first times that like a VR input device has bridged into something that's classically usable. Like I know Tilt Brush has been nice to be able to paint in the air and you could do these virtual whiteboards, but actually having that tactile feedback of physically pressing against a table and having uh, that feedback be one to one with exactly what a pen experience is was pretty amazing. And when I look at these ring controllers, I see the potential for something similar.
Yeah, that is actually what we saw in one of the patents. This idea of the Apple Pencil being used in conjunction with this, and the technology behind how this would actually be tracked is quite kind of intricate, but it doesn't really matter. The idea is the experience here would be that you do get a tracked pencil, and the surface for haptics is whatever table you're using. And it's interesting that these rings would essentially be a self haptic system, because that is the problem when you're designing for a system without hand controllers and when you're just using hands. It can't just be a free floating interface in the air because there's nothing there. There's no real way to interact with content that feels kind of tactile in the same way that using a touchscreen does. But if you are able to use the surfaces, and if this headset does have an understanding of where your tables are and where your walls are and where your furniture is, they can kind of make haptic surfaces out of the environment around you rather than having to emulate it with a controller system. But it's one of those things that it's very hard to predict or even expect what to see here. And I'm fairly sure that only Apple insiders right now know exactly what Apple's input approach is going to be with this headset.
Well, this is a great area to transition into our second subject today, where we're going to talk about these Nreal AR glasses that Heaney has had his hands on, or rather his eyes inside of recently. And the reason I think this is a perfect transition point is one of the sticking points that Heaney and I have gone back and forth here is I think an advantage that Apple has that potentially no one else can have is tracking your phone or your iPad as a potential input device, or potentially even just mirroring what's on those devices into your VR headset or your AR headset, whatever you want to call it, in real time for anything. So the fact that maybe your iPad could be laying on the desk in front of you, and you could still take your Apple Pencil and draw on it, even though you've got glasses on. That's something that we haven't really seen even Microsoft kind of match with like its Windows approach to having these floating windows in their home space. Yeah, it's okay, but it's not as efficient as, I don't know, being able to access 2 or 3 devices around you at any time with a natural pencil or with your finger input. Uh, will be really interesting to see what happens there. Hopefully, we'll have Heaney rejoin us here. It's funny. One little glitch in his app is whenever he joins the app, there's like a half a second little hitch in my reality here, and it's almost exactly like when they make a change in the Matrix. I've been meaning to tell you this, Heaney. I don't know if we talked about this already, but whenever someone else joins our studio, and Heaney just rejoined our studio, but it messes up just the perfect degree that it's exactly like a change in the Matrix and a deja vu experience.
Yeah, it is. It's interesting how heavy these original Oculus avatars are when you're just loading them in. I hear from the developers that have the new ones that it's a lot lighter on the Quest hardware, because I guess these
Mm.
avatars were originally designed for Rift. I'll just try to bring up an Nreal image here without crashing this time. Wow, the system keyboard is really broken in this new software version, isn't it?
That's one of those things that I'll be really curious to see over the long term with avatars, Heaney, is the difference in the way kind of systems handle avatar performance, right? Like the VR chat stuff that's so eye catching these days is these incredibly like physics heavy avatars with flowing clothes that respond realistically to body movements. And like none of that's going to perform on a standalone headset anytime soon, right? So how do we get more expressive avatars that really are fun to look at without while having them still be performant?
That's a great question, to be honest. And as you say, those avatars in VR chat are incredibly impressive. But if you do load in on a Quest, your performance is awful. And arguably VR chat is, for as amazing as it is of a platform, one of the worst performing apps on Quest. And that's not really anything against the developers. It's just there's no other way to do what they're trying to do without that. I wonder if we'll see in future hardware acceleration for things like avatars. When smartphones started to get popular, you notice the chips adding hardware acceleration for all the most common tasks. You had this entirely new era of image signal processors for the computational photography. And I guess maybe one day we'll get some kind of hardware acceleration for avatars, because it seems to be such a core part of VR and something that you want to have in a high fidelity to really give you a feeling of being next to a real person. But it's anyone's guess what really ends up being prioritized on future VR silicon.
All right, Heaney, let's get into Nreal here. You disappeared last time I tried to transition to you, but while I've got you here in this demonstration, what do you think I have in my hand right now, Heaney?
Is it the Ray Bans?
No, I've got my phone in my hand, and I wanted to use it as a demonstration of just how darn compelling it would be if this was one-to-one tracked in real time. If I could actually see my phone screen in real time in VR, I would be in VR a lot more often, in my opinion. Like I would. There's too many reasons to go out of the headset, look at my messages, look at my apps, and just the usefulness of that device. Heaney, you've had time with Nreal, and you talked about this input scheme on it. What is it like? to have that system, and how much better will it get when our phones can be tracked in real time by the headsets?
Stand by here. It keeps glitching for me here, my headset, unfortunately. I'm going to try and bring up an image of Nreal, and then I will answer all of your questions.
I get a sick sort of satisfaction from the fact that it's bugging out on Heaney, because it's like a Frankenstein's monster situation where I can sense his stress in real time through his avatar at his own software failing him, and
It's not my software. It's the system keyboard. So we don't have our own keyboard in this app. Quest developers can bring up the Oculus system keyboard for text input, which we use. It worked on every prior software version, but on this one, it keeps locking me into it. I actually had the same problem with the browser earlier on, so I don't know. Maybe I just need to reset my headset. Anyway, I think I've found some images of Nreal here we can bring up to show our viewers what we are talking about. And if you're not familiar with the news here, Nreal just this week, in fact, just today, is launching the first AR glasses product in the United States of America. It is available in Verizon stores today, and on Thursday, it will be available from their website. Now, the important caveat to that is that they only work on a specific list of high end Android phones. And I've been trying to get the confirmation of this for so long, but I don't know yet whether it's just Verizon models, because I'm not sure if Americans know this, but America is fairly unique in that the carriers in America have a lot more control over Android phones than in most countries. The firmware on an Android device is actually different between carriers in America, which I only found that out a few years ago, and so that means that features like this could really be restricted to only Verizon phones. But yeah, if you have a Galaxy S21, a Galaxy S20, a Galaxy Z Fold, a Galaxy Note 20, or a OnePlus 8 from Verizon, you can purchase these for $599. If you don't have one of those phones, the cheapest of them is $799. So your all-in price would be $1,400, which is very steep. So right off the bat, I'll just say we're going to have a review of this up likely tomorrow, a full review on our website. But I don't recommend you go out and buy one of these phones just for this product. But if you do have one of those phones and $599 is the kind of thing that you could throw around on a kind of toy / preview of the future, it could be something interesting to play around with.
more or less useful than Gear VR circa 2014.
Then Gear VR. Well, I think it's more useful, but the question was less than $100, and this is $600. Is it six times more useful? I don't think it's six times more useful, but I do think it's probably on a similar level in terms of what you can do with it. Although the content itself isn't. Gear VR had Facebook's backing to fund a lot of games and apps that made it, semi useful, whereas this really is filled with demos right now. There's not really a compelling software on this yet. Although I would say the built-in ability to cast browser screen, sorry, not cast, to position web browser panes around your real room is in itself the most useful app on this. That is the kind of the part that's actually most impressive. The AR apps are just kind of a fun way to get a preview of the future and find out what AR glasses feel like. And it is actually a really cool experience to be able to put on these glasses size things and see a virtual hologram on your floor and walk around, and you can still see your phone and you can still kind of see the real world. But the real use of this product, if you actually are looking for a useful use case, is in that virtual cinema experience or web browser.
Well, so to be clear, then, it's competing more directly with Vive Flow than with Quest or with or HoloLens. Like, is that a way of framing it?
I would say if this is competing with anything, it's Vive Flow. Realistically, it's not competing with anything. It's its own, in the United States at least, it's its own product. There's no other AR glasses that you can purchase, so it really is its own thing. I think Greg's VR is right in the comments here to say it feels like it's in the pre-Oculus DK1 days. I would say this is maybe a DK1. I would say we're probably just about at DK1 with something like this. We do have the basics are there. This is a skeleton product that shows you what AR glasses will be like. If you're a developer and you want to build AR glasses apps, I would 100% recommend picking one of these up if that's something that you're interested in. But in terms of consumers, that is a big question. Yes, some of the commenters mentioned that some of the Chinese companies have their own, clones of this, and that is true. But none of them have been announced outside the China market. We try to keep a somewhat close eye on the China market, but for obvious reasons, you can't really get full, accurate details out of that market without having a reporter on station, and for obvious reasons, that's not exactly practical. Yeah.
So there's a lot of things we got to deal with if we decide to go down that route. The thing about we talked about these a little bit before about occlusion and the value of occlusion, and I think the comparison to DK1 is kind of an important one where, yeah, like in my opinion, these things aren't compelling until you sort of support occlusion of physical objects really robustly. Um, but there's plenty of people, to your point, like developers who could get started now with very future looking ideas with the development, this as one of the development kits at their hands where they can play with. um but I want to get to the DK2 where things start to get really interesting to me with occlusion, and then beyond that, that's when we get to the consumer products. So yeah, I like that analogy of where we are on that timeline, and I still think we're
Yeah.
several years away.
Yeah, I think that analogy does work well. Occlusion to AR is what positional tracking is to VR. And just for anyone who's listening that doesn't know what we mean when we say occlusion, say there is a physical object in your room, like a chair in front of you, and the virtual hologram should be behind that chair because it's more distant than the chair. With this product, you will see the hologram rendered in front of the chair. The virtual object will not appear like it is behind the chair. In a system that does have occlusion, like Magic Leap 1 and HoloLens 2, if the developer supports it, I'm not sure it's automatic. I think there needs to be a little bit of developer support. You'll see that virtual pet or whatever the object is behind the chair, and you'll have to kind of look around the chair, or the object would have to move to the side of the chair for you to be able to see it. And uh, James O'Loughlin says here that he would recommend waiting for Magic Leap 2 or HoloLens 2 if you're a developer. The thing is that those platforms, those products are $3,000 and this is $600. So if you're wanting to build for a consumer audience eventually, you're going to want to try and build on the hardware the consumers are going to have, because I don't think this is going to. I see more of a viable path in technology building up from the base than kind of going down from that level. But if you can afford $3,000 for one of those products and that's something you're fine with, then yeah, you're going to have a better experience. Although what I would say, these are extremely comfortable and genuinely do feel like a heavy pair of glasses. It doesn't feel like goggles. It doesn't feel like having a headset on. Onakazi says without occlusion, it's just a glorified heads-up display. I definitely disagree with that. It is, I've used heads-up displays. This is an AR product. If you have a virtual dog or cat on your floor with this, you walk around the room and it stays in that position, and it's on your floor and it's walking around the floor. If you attach a virtual television to your wall for watching YouTube or Netflix, it is attached to your wall. You walk around the room, you come back into the room, that's where it is. Now, the tracking quality on this product, I will point out, is not perfect. It is definitely not up to the same quality that you'd see in a Quest 2, but in general, it's going to be roughly in the same position. But yeah, I would say so. My position here is beyond Onakazi's, but not as far as you. And I think these are AR, but it's not obviously full, highly compelling AR just yet.
I threw up this video that we published right before Facebook Connect recently, where this is a room mapper tool that a developer out there had built and open sourced, or just made available openly for anyone on Quest to mess with. But what you're seeing with this tool is mapping a room and giving it dimension more than just the floor. And if you've got something like an entrance to the room, like a doorway, you could map the entrance to the room using this kind of system. And the moment you've got like occluded walls and doorways for things to come through, and you intelligently tell things that this is a room and you can enter through this doorway, the software completely changes and becomes way, way, way more interesting, in my opinion, than some of the things we've played with so far. And the examples that were shown in addition to this video is if he goes like out this door and opens up the door and looks down the hallway, there could be a zombie down that hallway, assuming he's mapped that hallway the same way he's mapped this bedroom. And that's what is compelling to me. This is compelling AR technology to me, and these are the games I want to play that are able to do this. I want to do that yesterday. I want to do that with the Quest 2, and I want to do it with any hardware I buy in the future. Am I going to be able to do it with these?
So no, you don't have occlusion with this product. What this product understands is it understands the planar surfaces in your room. So that's your table surfaces, your floor, your counter, the top of your uh, dressing table, whatever flat surfaces are in your room. It does not yet understand walls or furniture or anything like that. But I still think I agree with you that getting that opens up a lot more content, but I disagree that this isn't compelling at all without it. There are
Mm.
plenty of apps that you will use even in a system that has occlusion that really don't use occlusion or ever actually add anything meaningful from occlusion. There are plenty of apps that you're right to say there are plenty of apps that simply can't exist today on this because of the lack of occlusion. But I really, from using the apps on this so far throughout the past week or two, I think there's still some useful applications for which, depending on the shape of your room, occlusion is not the end of the world to not have.
All right, Heaney. Let's say you're a developer and you don't want to get a meta product and you want to explore the AR frontier because you do want to get a couple years ahead. Do you go get this? Do you go get HoloLens? Do you go get Magic Leap 2? Do you wait for Magic Leap 2? Do you go get Vive Flow? Do you go get Quest 2? What is the one dev device as a dev that you think an AR interested dev should go check out right now?
That's a very difficult question. I would point out that, we reported on this. Magic Leap has pivoted from consumer to enterprise. I would have to double check, but I'm not actually sure Magic Leap still sells to just any interested consumer developer. I think they've gone down the path where you need to be a business to now relate to them. And we haven't heard any indication that Magic Leap 2 will be any different. I don't think, correct me if I'm wrong, but we haven't heard anything from Magic Leap about going back into the consumer market. If anything, if you look at their hiring, if you look at their kind of the reported product plans, it looks like they're leaning heavily into that enterprise market. Microsoft is the same, although you can buy a HoloLens 2 as a developer. You don't need to be a business to get one. But at the same time, there's not a consumer platform there. Someone said earlier, the chat scrolled a bit too quickly, but someone said, why would you want to build on Nreal's platform if, it's fairly unlikely that Nreal is going to be a big player in this space in the long term? You have to understand that these glasses are not actually powering this experience. The experience is entirely powered by the phone. There is no full-fledged chip or battery in these glasses. They are entirely powered over that USB cable. And so it's actually just an Android app. If you're building for Nreal, you're just building Android apps. And I think it's a
So
fairly safe bet to say that at least one of the major platforms in AR is going to be Android based. So you're still getting that experience there.
and you're picking an engine like Unity, right? Like
Yeah.
assuming so if you're a Unity developer, you've got some experience in Unity, and you know what an APK is and how to put an APK on a device, you might be able to actually put something on these glasses that you could see as a
Yeah.
dev.
Yeah, and I'm just going to come back to the question you asked at the start. I think, while we were trying to get those images up, I didn't really get to answering it. But the biggest limitation with this product, and my biggest problem with it, is not the glasses themselves. It is this phone, because not only is the phone being the battery and the processor for this product, it's also the primary input device. So just like with Vive Flow and just like with the controller that Oculus Go had, it acts as this rotational pointer, but it's not actually positionally tracked. So you just kind of get this strange laser line coming from the phone that you point
Yeah.
around and interact with things. And that is the most clunky thing. Though what I will say is this does have a hand tracking SDK, although bizarrely, like one or two apps support it, and none of the major apps support it, and the system software doesn't even support it. I don't understand why, if you were Nreal and you have this fairly awful control scheme, if I'm being frank, you wouldn't push developers to support hand tracking. I don't understand why the system software doesn't support hand tracking. It seems like a bizarre oversight to me. But given that this does have that hand tracking, I think that's why this does become something interesting for developers because, if you're a developer, you can open Unity, you can add the hand tracking support, you can play around with putting, a mini game on a table and just kind of learn what's fun in AR. And it is because it's that $600 price. Again, obviously, that is not cheap for most people in the world. That is still a large amount of money, but it's not 3,000. It's not that level. And if you do have one
Mm.
of these devices from Verizon and you're an interested AR developer, why not? Is what I would say. Why not give it a try? But for anyone else, obviously this is not a mass market product.
Mm. So you really focused on the controller there, and I'm glad you went there because in addition to the occlusion sort of being a showstopper for me as a consumer, or even like I get all your points as like an intriguing device for developers, but I would think that you could do an APK AR product using a Quest headset, and then if you really had a problem with Meta, you could take that product to a different device down the line and still do your development on that system, couldn't you? If you really were were needing to sort of get started for only a couple $100.
Yeah, Quest 2 definitely is a mixed reality dev kit. I mean, there is a pass-through API, although, I would say while developers have built room understanding, at current Quest 2 has no room understanding of any sort in the sense that, you know, even next year, what's going to happen is that consumers are going to be asked to manually mark out their room and their walls, as you showed there. Meta has their own take on that. So I'm not sure it comes back to the problem for me with Quest 2 as a mixed reality device really is what we discussed the last time we talked about this. And, we do disagree here, but I just don't think that the black and white low resolution view in Quest 2 is
Mm,
comfortable for more than 5 minutes. And I say that because
yeah,
I've tried to use it for more than 5 minutes and it genuinely just gives me a headache. And
and
nothing else in VR gives me a headache.
and Kyle took you up on that challenge. He was talking to me about it when we were in the studio yesterday, and he's like, "Yeah, he's got a point there." The thing I want, the thing
Yeah,
I
it
want to
sucks.
get up, the thing I want to get at here about like the input device and the whole thing of like, there's a lot of things going on with that classic platform being bridged over to this new ecosystem that like makes it hard for the people out there to understand sort of the benefits on the other side of this. We've seen so many false starts of like legitimately not useful takes on a lot of these things that like it's hard to imagine this actually becoming legitimately useful. But I keep coming back to this situation that I have in my house where like I have a whiteboard calendar that I've put up in my kitchen for tracking all the things going on with my family. So sports practices, trips, all those things go on this physical whiteboard calendar that's sitting in the kitchen, and we all pass by every day, going about our business. And I also have a digital calendar system, which is like across iCloud and Google systems, and like I need to share certain events with certain people on certain devices and block out time for certain people. Like if you and I wanted to have a meeting in workrooms, I would have to pick from four different calendars that I would actually go and put that item on in order for you to be able to know that I've blocked out time for you, my coworker, to go with me. And then also my family to know that I can't actually go to something at that time. Like what I'm getting at here is I would love to have my phone in my hand and be able to pick the calendar app off of my phone and pin it to my wall and have it be in the same spot as my physical calendar and have it be a perfect sync up of what's actually on the physical calendar to what ends up getting synced to the calendar that's in my phone. And that's the advantage that Apple has to bring here that none of these platforms can ever get to match anywhere in the near future. And I think I wanted to point that out.
So I'm just going to reply to a few comments here. Yeah, people are saying, I'm sorry. James O'Loughlin said, "I'm sure they're building the foundation for Project Cambria." You're right. Quest 2 is clearly a development kit for mixed reality. It's a very minimum viable mixed reality product, and you're right to say that Meta has announced that Project Cambria will have high resolution color cameras, so it will be a lot more suitable for mixed reality development. Artful says, how low resolution is it really? Is there a software reveal coming limiting these cameras? If you're referring to Quest 2, which I think you are, no, they really are just that low resolution. These cameras were not even designed originally for pass through. They're designed for tracking. They are spec'd and designed to track the headset and the IR LEDs inside the controllers at a wide angle and with kind of a very low shutter time so that there's no blurring of the LEDs across the camera. Project Cambria, we understand, will probably use a different camera for mixed reality than it does for tracking. So that's how they're going to get around that. But obviously, that starts to drive up the price. And yeah, I think that's all the comments so far. Please feel free, anyone, to ask questions about Nreal. Like I said, we have this product. We have been using it. We plan to have a full review up tomorrow. So if you do have any questions about Nreal, we can answer them.
Yeah, I want to say Valdarg mentioning, hopefully one would hope you wouldn't have a physical calendar at that point. And I think that misses that's what I'm getting here is that kind of misses where this next generation of computing is going to go. What we've seen with Horizon Workrooms, with the ability to take that Oculus Touch controller and use it as a pen on the table, and then they've explored having your wall as like a whiteboard that you sync up one to one, and it made more sense for them to have a virtual whiteboard. But we will really have this situation where, I don't know, every surface around you can become much more useful to you, and your existing tools, like there's all these everyday use cases that we haven't even fathomed what happens when these headsets really recognize uh, the environment around them with incredible accuracy. Being able to go into your refrigerator, open the door, and see the expiration date of every product that's in your fridge above it is only going to be possible with across the ecosystem like knowledge and the ability to kind of like access all of these different pieces of info you're giving the computer system. But there's just a million of these little examples of just merging the systems you already use, the physical systems, the way you manage your day every day, in non-computer based ways, and merging that with computers to just slip into your life. That's going to be more useful than like kind of forcing you into using one computer system across all devices for the rest of your life. I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with you. The current technology systems we have are very detached from the real world. If you're out, you can always see people staring down at these little black rectangles in their hand, completely detached from the real world. If you're in a cafe, people are kind of hunched over these laptops, and people are all people are always very pessimistic about technology in the future. It's kind of trendy, but there is an optimistic view here that spatial computing, like AR glasses and VR headsets with mixed reality capabilities, could actually help us engage more with the real world and be more present and have this kind of hard separation between technology and the real world be less of a hard transition.
Yeah,
The question I want to answer here is just field of view. I've seen a few people say here, yeah, 52 degrees diagonal. So field of view, I have to say, is one of the things I was most shocked about using this, because I really was expecting it to be a lot worse than it is. And I think it feels that way because obviously the glasses themselves, if you're wearing even normal glasses, only actually cover a limited portion of your field of view. So I've been really struggling in my written review to find a way to convey field of view in AR glasses, because I can't actually find a good way to express it that helps people understand. I can say 52 degrees. I can say it looks like, a certain inch TV at 2 meters or something, but that really doesn't give you a feeling of what that field of view actually feels like. I would
Hmm.
say vertically it's actually more impressive than I was expecting, but horizontally it's still quite limited in that you need to look horizontally at what you're looking for. People are mentioning here that the vertical space is covered up, so it's pretty terrible. Yes, but it doesn't feel wrong because there's nothing there. It's not like you're seeing the real world without the holograms. There is that kind of black patch above the glasses, but it really doesn't feel like a problem. And I'm more optimistic about field of view after using this, although that is only when you're using content that's far away. If you're trying to get close to something, the field of view becomes incredibly noticeable. And that's where some of the most interesting game demos on this so far are tabletop, where you have, a tabletop game that you would play in real life, but it's virtual and projected onto a large table in front of you. And if you can get closer to that, that would be so much more compelling than today, where you really have to constantly look around and parts of your table will not have the content anymore.
Yeah, I don't know if this is going to work, Heaney, but what is the size of your virtual TV here?
I don't know off the top of my head. I think it's 1.3
What?
meters or something.
1.3 meters. How many is that in inches? What kind of? Is this a
I don't
65
speak
inch
American. I
TV?
don't know.
Oh, don't
Oh,
speak American. Let's
you
say.
mean diagonally? I don't know. I don't know actually. I don't
I
know
want to know what the
the
equivalent of this is, and then how far away it is from these cameras over there. To wonder if there's an analogy there that we could provide. That, like, if you were standing where the camera is uh, and looking at a, this screen with these Nreal glasses on, how much of this would you be able to see?
Trust me, I've that's what I was saying earlier. I've been thinking about this for days, and it really doesn't work. This idea of saying, it looks like a whatever inch TV at whatever meters, because even if you say that accurately, and we do have the accurate figures, and we'll have that in our review, it still doesn't convey what that's actually like when you're walking around a room and moving your head. It's one of I can only say it feels like it's about if you're wearing a normal pair of glasses, think of maybe 80% vertically and maybe 50% horizontally. That's all. That's the best I can express this.
Uh,
But it's one of those things where we're going to just need to wait until people actually get to try AR glasses, so we have a baseline to compare it to.
I don't know. I get that. It's just I get the TV thing. It's just I had the original Magic Leaps on, and I remember standing maybe in a room that's roughly equivalent to the studio, and I'm standing on that wall, the far end wall, looking at an opposite wall, and in that setting, they were able to augment almost floor to ceiling, and it was a really believable effect when you're at that distance, and yeah, you've got content in that sort of perfectly lined up space. But the fact is, most of the time, you're much closer to the surface that you're looking at. And you don't want to artificially have to like walk to the opposite side of the room to see the whole view of the thing that you want in front of you. And it becomes like endlessly frustrating to kind of have to update that all the time.
Yeah, for sure. For anyone listening that isn't, aware of the current state of AR, the field of view here is still very limited. That is, we are years off in AR glasses size product that provides a wide enough field of view to really get close to objects and still see them in your view. But the optimistic thing I would say here, and I've seen a few questions on this to answer, is that the resolution is incredibly impressive. The resolution is better than Quest 2, it's better than Reverb G2, and from my angular resolution characteristics, it is roughly the same as or slightly better than even Varjo Aero. So you will have no problem reading small text even at a distance, which means that you can place these virtual monitors quite far away and kind of still easily read them. But obviously, it still limits the kind of content you can have when you can't bring stuff close and still fully see it.
Is there IPD adjustment with these?
There is not. There are prescription lenses, though. I don't wear glasses, so I can't really tell you whether that works or not. But I think
Hmm.
obviously eventually we'll get one to Kyle, the bespectacled individual, and he can tell us all about it.
The bespectacled individual. If you have any last comments, leave them. We'll try to get to them before we close up. Is there anything else we should get into, Heaney?
Anything else on Nreal? I guess we should just say it's fairly unlikely that this first mover advantage is going to give Nreal a major position in the US market. I think this is still too expensive and too limited to the number of phones that it supports to really be that first mover advantage. Obviously, Nreal tells me that you can plug in almost any device and see your phone screen floating in front of you, which I guess is cool, but I don't know if that's $600 worth. But we do know that in Asia, they actually have a new product called Nreal Air that doesn't have any positional tracking and doesn't have the AR features or hand tracking and is just designed to mirror your iPhone or any other phone to a floating screen in front of you. So I'll be interested to see how well that does, because coming back to your question about how do we compare this to Flow, I actually do think this is preferable to Flow if what you're looking for is to just have a virtual cinema screen in front of you when you're traveling around on in a hotel room. But I don't think it would be very suitable for a plane because the distance just wouldn't be suitable. So if you're on a plane or a train and you want a portable cinema, go for Vive Flow. But if you're in a hotel room, I would pick this because it's more comfortable and you can see your real phone.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us, everyone. Make sure to come back here on December 2nd at 9 a.m. Pacific time for the UploadVR showcase. We've got a heck of a lineup of new VR game announcements to reveal at that time. We've sort of trickling out some of those reveals on our Twitter account if you go follow at UploadVR. Thank you, everyone, in our comments for the wonderful questions. As we've kind of repeated here, we're going to try to be in here a lot in the studio, answering questions as often as we can. And we're so appreciative of this supportive atmosphere that we see in our comments. Please, if you have answers to the questions you see in the comments that are really helpful, drop them in there. Help out your fellow VR buyers. Help them save money, save time, figure out what's cool out there. Lots of questions coming through in our comments all the time. And come back to us on Thursdays where we do the VR Gamescast. We have Zena and Jamie in here usually talking about the latest VR games. Heaney,
but not this
myself,
week because...
Yep. Not this week because Thursday is going to be this UploadVR showcase. So Jamie and Zena will hopefully take a nice long nap and disappear into the forest somewhere after this big debut later this week. So thank you so much for joining us. We've got a big season. We've got Quest V35, which released right before we came in here. Matrix Resurrections is coming, and we're getting excited for that. I'm getting excited for that because we started off the show that way. And it's just going to be a huge, huge season with everyone getting Quest 2 out there. And if they're not getting Quest 2, they're getting some amazing time in games like Half-Life Alyx. And it's just going to be an extraordinary year this year for all the new people getting into VR. And thank you so much for joining us. We'll be here next week. We've got Pistol Whip news coming up this week as well. And make sure to I said it. Yep. All right. Check us out Thursday. Come back for the VR showcase, and we'll see you in the future.
Don't miss the showcase. Do not miss it.